our job in our mental equivalent is always to claim the what, never the how. That is the universal law's job.
I'm so glad you joined us today. That makes you a part of CSLDallas, and we love that our community continues to grow. And we also love to give great spiritual content. And a way that you can participate in our community is financially give to it. It's easy to do so. Go to CSLDallas.org and hit the give button. Or you can set up a text giving mechanism at 972-954-4404, a safe and secure way to send us money whenever you watch a great message like this. So thanks for giving, and buckle up, because here comes the spiritual content.
Well, I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy to see you guys. I feel so welcome. Thank you so much. I really did have an extraordinary opportunity to hang with my family. Usually I fly in and fly out of Germany in a pretty fast. And it's, that hi, hello, how are you? Please, I'm happy to see you, and then gone. And to actually get to spend time with them, just sort of day to day, was really, really, really wonderful. Yeah, and it's really nice to come home and be with my family. And and to feel so supported and so loved. And I really can't thank you enough for the support, for getting to go on the sabbatical, and for the support of our leadership, our staff, our ministers, especially my beloved Reverend Karen, the way she supported me, the way that you supported her, and supported the, it's actually not about us here at CSL Dallas. It's really about the teaching and the community. And we happen to be the ones who get to stand up here and talk about it. And so it's really, really wonderful. And I can't thank our staff enough to just really, I didn't come home to any fires. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? Isn't that? Yeah. So I'd like you to acknowledge all those people who, and including yourselves. Yeah, really. It's awesome. So, yes. So today we're talking about build a fire of prosperity. So we're starting to really set our prosperity on ablaze. And I've been moving in the direction of my dreams, right? Many of you know I went on the sabbatical this year to begin working on writing a book of my own. I've written journals with Reverend Dr. Christian Sorensen, but it's time for me to see if I have anything else to say. CSL Dallas is clearly moving in the direction of our dreams, and I'm hoping that you're ready to move in the direction of your dreams as well, with hope and greater possibility for the greater prosperity for you and every person on the planet. And I believe that Science of Mind teaches us how to do that. I believe that Science of Mind gives us the tools and the understanding and everything that we need to set our prosperity ablaze, to set our lives on fire in a good way. Not burning everything down, but building it up. Now, one of the things that I think is really true about the Science of Mind, and actually it's said in the Science of Mind textbook, a Science of Mind is not a get-rich-quick scheme. So, dang, I know, we will not falsely promise you prosperity for nothing. No. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Science of Mind teaches principles for growing sustainable prosperity in a joy-filled and abundant life. That's what we do. And one of the things that we can be really good at in New Thought and in the Science of Mind is generating money in a pinch, which is great. But what we want to do is set our prosperity ablaze in such a big way that we don't ever have to demonstrate money in a pinch. That we don't ever have to go and demonstrate something because we need it, but that we are manifesting and demonstrating things because it is the natural outpicturing of the joy of our lives and what we came here to do and who we came here to be and the life that we came here to express. And truthfully, that does actually require money, requires jobs and homes and cars and whatever it is that we need, businesses, whatever the accoutrement of our life. It might mean it needs instruments or paints or a time away to write or whatever it is. And all of that is covered in the field of prosperity that really allows us to grow a sustainable, joy-filled life. And we are building the ground as we have to lay the logs. You're going to see this in the fire walk on Friday. Saturday, don't miss it. You lay the logs first, and they have to be laid down, and the foundation has to be made before it can be set ablaze. And so today, we're talking about building the fire in the first place. And so we're going to start with a technical term that comes out of the science of mind, a philosophical idea called mental equivalent. A mental equivalent is the ground for our prosperity, from which our prosperity grows. The mental equivalent. And so a mental equivalent, right, it's pretty self-explanatory. Something in our minds that is equal to that which we want to express or experience. Now, we're going to use the term mind loosely. Ernest Holmes uses the term mind. I think he means consciousness, the mind, heart, body, feelings, thoughts, connection, that wholeness of our experience. And so we're going to see how we can build and grow our mental equivalents. In the science of mind, it says a mental equivalent is having a subjective idea of the desired experience. So a subjective idea. A subjective idea is something which we have come to believe to be true. That's what it means to have a subjective idea. A conscious idea is an idea that we play with up here in the consciousness, in our awareness. But when it becomes subjectified, that means that it is something that we believe to be true. As we bring ourselves to a greater vision than the range of our present concepts, we can then induce a greater concept and therefore demonstrate more in our experience. And this greater concept is the growth of our mental equivalent. We're going to try not to get hung up on the mental idea and think that means this is my linear, rational brain thinking about something. Right? We use the term mental in New Thought as opposed to physical. That's what it means. It doesn't just mean the mind. It certainly doesn't mean the left brain rational mind. It means the cognitive experience to think, to imagine, and to feel into the reality of that which does not yet have physical substance. So we want to be really clear that that's what we're speaking about. And we have to have that. We want to build that. And if we want to know what our mental equivalent is currently, look at your life. A mental equivalent is the idea that water seeks its own level, and the physical reality seeks the level of the experience that we have in our consciousness. Now, the first time this was ever really brought home to me, this was long ago. I was relatively new here in Dallas, relatively new here full-time as the senior minister in this community. And I was rapidly discovering that to not burn out, I actually needed to take longer than 1 week of vacation at a time. Actually, 2 weeks it took me 2 weeks to kind of start to really slow down. I remember the year that I said to my partner at the time, I think this year I really want us to take a 3-week vacation because I never quite get fully let down so that I can actually be on vacation and then to be ready to go up again to work. And so, what do you think? Let's go on a 3-week vacation. And her response was to burst into tears. I'm not kidding. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what happened right now. Not only did she burst into tears, she then got very, very angry with me, which was not the response I was expecting, suggesting that we would go on a 3-week vacation. And so we really explored that and talked about that. And her experience, when we were able to really understand what her response was that she had never had more than 1 day of vacation as a child because the family worked a farm. You didn't go on vacation because the cows needed to be milked and chickens needed to be fed and stuff needed to be done. And the idea of a 3-week vacation was so out of the frame of reference that it was frightening, and actually somehow it made her angry. And that was a powerful moment to begin to unlock that idea of what does it mean to go on vacation? How long of a vacation can someone take? That was such an extraordinary moment for me to actually see someone's mental equivalent in full bloom. And how our mental equivalents can grow us and how they can hold us back. So a mental equivalent, in the Science of Mind, it says this: we must have a mental equivalent. We must recognize what mental equivalent means. A person who works for $10 a week has no mental equivalent for $500. There must be something inside of us which equals the thing we want to do. Water will reach its own level by its own weight. If you would equally distribute money among everybody in 2 or 3 years, those who have no mental equivalent will not actually have money. The people who are the most intelligent along these lines get it all back. Now, that doesn't mean IQ intelligence, right? That is the intelligent use of the spiritual laws and the understanding of mental equivalence. And so our job is to grow our mental equivalent, to stretch it, to be willing to look clear-eyed at what our mental equivalents are, and to ask ourselves, how can we grow them? And we can provide some tools and techniques, go into classes, take classes. I can't tell you strongly enough to take classes. If you are ready to build your fire, if you are ready to lay the groundwork to build the fire of prosperity in your life, get your butt into classes. I would say that more strongly, but it's being taped. So you know what I mean out there. So if we're ready to build our fire of prosperity, let's start laying some groundwork. The first groundwork is the groundwork of thinking. Okay, so as many of you know, I bought a BMW convertible at the end of whenever it was, a year and a half ago, and for my new car. And so let me just tell you that in the middle of the summer of that year, we talked about I needed a new car. My car was, reaching. I always keep my cars 10, 12 years. Was reaching that age. Time to get a new one. And I thought, oh man, I think maybe I'm ready for a convertible again. My first car was a convertible. I had a convertible in my 30s. I've had motorcycles. Like, maybe I'm ready for a convertible again. So we looked at convertibles, and I've always loved a Miata. I had a Miata before, and I thought, I'm going to have a Miata. But you know what's way back here is I'd really love to have a BMW with a, convertible. And I actually had a friend who had a beautiful used Miata and let me drive it around because I was like, I think I can afford a Miata. I can probably afford a used Miata. And I drove the used Miata and I thought, I'm not 30 anymore. I don't know about this. So I said, well, maybe not so much. And for 6 months, what I thought about was how I couldn't own a BMW. That's what I thought about. And then I thought about, it's not my job to know how. It's only my job to decide whether or not that's what I want. It took me 6 months to stop thinking about how I couldn't have it. That's how long it took me. It took me 6 months to stop thinking the thoughts that were limiting me. And every once in a while, Karen would be like, are you ready to go look? Mm-mm. Nope. Have you decided on what you want? Mm-mm. Nope. Because all I could think about was I can't figure out how it's going to work. It's a $60,000 car. It's not quite in my budget. And I can't remember whether it was right before Christmas or right after Christmas. She said, Are you ready to go look for a car? Yep. Oh, where are we going? Oh, to this place up there. This place up there that has BMWs. And I walked in there and I said to them, you can show me any used BMW you want, just don't show me one with a black interior, because when you have the top down in the sun in Texas, you do not want a black interior. So don't show me any kind of a dark interior, light interior, whatever you've got, let me see. 2 of these, virtually identical. Basically the same age, basically the same amount of miles. I happened to fall in love with this one, a little cheaper and less miles. It's pretty interesting. I thought, well, that is my sign. And I bought this BMW for less than I bought my brand new Honda Hybrid Civic 10 years before. It took me 6 months to grow the mental equivalent. Do you see? It took me 6 months to get underneath the thoughts that I have about how I couldn't do it, to build the mental equivalent that yes, in fact, somehow this is possible. Now, we also talk about feeling. So many of you heard the story, the last time I went on my sabbatical. I went on my sabbatical 5 years ago, and I had decided that I was going to go. I had 2 conferences, and I was going to go to Europe in between 3 months. It was terrifying. I was going to be by myself for 3 months in Europe, travel around, and I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, and I certainly didn't know how I was going to do that. And I was terrified. And for those of you around, you remember, I wasn't going to go because I couldn't figure out how to pack my suitcase. But more importantly, I wasn't going to go because I couldn't figure out how to color my hair in the 3 months I was going to be gone. So, God forbid, I guess I can't go, right? Excuses. And all of those excuses, where do those excuses come from? From our fear. So the second thing that holds our mental equivalent back is our fear, all the ways that we're afraid that we can't do something. So Susan gave me my little tubes that I needed while I was there, and I was donated money, which was significantly more than I expected, and I went on this amazing vacation sabbatical experience, went to the conferences, and discovered that I could travel alone. I was so refilled when I came home. So this year, when it was time for sabbatical, what happened? Oh, more fear, because I declared I was going to write. So I'm no longer, I know I can travel on my own, see my family, financially no problem. But now I've made a declaration I can write. Oh, let me tell you, all of the feelings, well, what's anybody going to read? How do I know it's any good? Blah, 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 blah. All tied up with the fear of not being good enough, saying I'm going to do something and then not following through, writing something that's completely, terrible. And so first I had to move through those feelings just to get to go to the sabbatical. And then when I arrived in my writing studio in Denmark, I sat there and I thought, and all those feelings of inadequacy and unprepared that was the work, right? And right there, those feelings were the feelings that were holding in my mental equivalent. And so I simply talked to my feelings and worked with them and said, you know what, we're just not going to pay attention to what we write, we're just going to write. And so I did. I wrote almost an average of 3,000 words a day, wrote 40,000 words while I was there, which is about half of what I'd like to write for my book, and I think some of it is pretty damn good. Yeah. And it was extraordinary, and it was so amazing to work through the feeling, right? With the car, I had to work through my thoughts. Here, I had to work through my feelings. And to stop allowing them to hold the mental equivalent, to shrink it or to keep it contracted. Okay, so thinking, feeling. Imagining. We have to then also begin to imagine what's possible. So a number of years ago, I began looking for my own place, a place to live. I was looking for a house with trees, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw an apartment. I don't think I'm ever going to live in an apartment again. Why do I keep seeing this apartment? I kept seeing apartment with balcony and trees, apartment with balcony and trees. I'm like, I'm looking for a house, a little house. So I finally decided, okay, whatever. I think maybe I'll look for a condo down in Oak Lawn. I'll look for a condo over in, I looked in 2 or 3 places. I don't know where all the places are. I looked, and I didn't like any of them, and they were expensive. So I went back to looking for houses with trees. And I didn't like any of them either. A year and a half I looked. A year and a half. And this weird little image kept coming to my mind. It was like it looked like an apartment, and it had a little balcony, and there were trees. And And then one day I walked into a place. Actually, it was the second time I was in it. The first time I turned around and walked out about as fast. And it was the second time I went in it, and I thought, wow, look at this. And the windows were open, and there were all these trees out there. And wow, there's a creek down there. Look at that. And there's a little balcony right here to look at the creek. And I walked down the stairs and was asked, what will happen if this gets sold to somebody else? And I burst into tears. And that's how I knew. And so I bought a little condo. And then I had to imagine these beautiful railings that I was told couldn't be put in. It was impossible, physically impossible, but of course now I have them. And my apartment looks over a creek and trees like you can't even imagine actually seeing in Dallas, in a little tiny place, because I allowed myself to let the imagination play. Right? How many times we have a little image, we imagine something and we discount it. Well, that's not right. Well, that's not right. Well, it can't really be that. No. What are you talking about? Right? So thinking, feeling, imagining. Notice that I didn't try to visualize walking around in my house, although that's a perfectly wonderful technique. Once we acquiesce to the fact that these images that are coming to us out of our own inner knowing are meaningful, and we begin to pay attention to them. And then we can begin to imagine, well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How does that work? And when our thinking and our feeling and our imagining come together, we move into this place where we begin to actually claim a new mental equivalent. In the Science of Mind, it says to be satisfied if within your own consciousness you can see a mental unfoldment, a greater reaching out and taking in more and more. And when you feel your vision is enlarging, as it enlarges, just reach out and take hold of everything. Claiming our good. Reach out and take hold of it. I had to reach out and take hold of that car when it showed up. I had to reach out and take hold of that little apartment in Copenhagen when it showed up. And then I had to reach out and take hold of myself and my desire to write and claim it for myself. I had to reach out and take hold of that condo, which needed a fair amount of work, and claim it for my own because it had all the things that spoke to my soul about a place to live. And sometimes I think we so overemphasize allowing and accepting that we forget that we actually have to claim the end result. That's what our mental equivalent is. It's always the end result. What we have to allow and accept is the process through which we get to the end result. I think often we get it confused and we do it backwards. And we say to the spirit, well, whatever you want, spirit, and then we try to figure out how to get there. First of all, we don't know where there is because we've said, Spirit, whatever you want. Spirit only wants for us what we want. The universe only wants to express itself as us the way that we want to express it. It has no opinion other than that you are happy and joy-filled and prosperous and live a life that allows you to express who you are. Not who your neighbor is or your mother is or your spouse is or your child is, but who you are and what's important to you. And so we want a spirit to give us the sign of what we want, and then we try to manage how. This is not how it works. How it works is we claim the what. We grow that concept, image, imagination, experience, feeling, thoughts. We grow that whole package, and then we allow the universe to move us. And we accept the ways in which we find ourselves feeling and thinking and going, yes, that's good. No, that's not. Oh, I like that. I went back to a condo that I had absolutely said, oh, I'm not interested in that. And then when it came up again, you want to go see it? Well, it came up again. And so, sure, why not? Let's go see it again. Do you see? So our job in our mental equivalent is always to claim the what, never the how. That is the universal law's job. I didn't know how I was going to go on sabbatical. I didn't know how to deal with all the issues that came up. I didn't know how I was going to buy this BMW. I didn't know how I was going to find a condo with a creek and trees literally it's in Addison, six minutes away from here. It looks like a tree house, like we're out in the wilderness. In Dallas, hello. I don't know how to do that. But the universal law knows how to do these things, right? So our job is to then begin to claim that mental equivalent. We have to start owning it. We have to start owning the possibility of it. We have to start allowing it in. So part of that owning is embodying. We have to begin to embody it. Now, I'll tell you the story. So anyway, there's this joke that goes around. I know they're boring, but it's jokes for ministers, okay? So you just have to, So one of the minister's jokes is, you can tell how big a church is by where the checkbook lives. So when a church is first starting out, the checkbook lives in the pocket or purse of the minister who's starting it. And then when they actually have a group of people that they're working with, the checkbook lives in the glove compartment so that they can write checks while they're together. Then the checkbook moves to the purse or the glove compartment of somebody who's willing to pay the bills other than the minister. Then when the church is continuing to grow, then there's an opportunity for somebody to actually play bookkeeper for the church. Usually it's in a desk at their home, and so the church checkbook moves to the desk at home of the person who's being the treasurer or being the financial person or the bookkeeper. Eventually, as the church continues to grow, then all of a sudden, there's a secretary or office manager or somebody in the office who's able to write checks, responsible for it. And for the first time, the checkbook actually goes to the center, to the church, to the place where it is, where the business is, where the business is done. And eventually, as the church continues to grow, the community grows, things happen. Eventually, you get one of those 3-tiered checkbooks. And there may be 2 signatures required. And you've become a big church. You have now become a big church. So 15 years ago, when I learned this, I thought, I better look around and see where the checkbook's living. Well, based on where our checkbook is living, we were a small church. And we didn't want to be a small church. We wanted to be a dynamic, vibrant community and center here in Dallas, 24/7 offering education and classes and spiritual opportunities and meditation and all of those things. And I remember the meeting that we had of our leadership, and we said, we are no longer going to play small. We're now going to be a big church. And we began owning that. Well, what would that look like? Well, first of all, the checkbook would be at the office. Second of all, the senior minister would no longer be cleaning the toilets. And on it went. We began to examine everything that we were doing and seeing the mental equivalent that it was portraying about who we thought we were as a community and as an organization. And it was, it sounds so silly when we said, okay, we're just going to be a big church. Not like we're going to be a mega church tomorrow, but to think, do you see how that pushed the boundaries? And we began to embody. So part of what I'm working on embodying, I'm actually a published author. I am. I thought about that. I'm going to embody being a published author. Oh, wait, I already am a published author. And actually reasonably successful. We're one of the best-selling books that Science of Mind Press has, that Spiritual Living Press has. But I want to be a best-selling author with a more nationally known publisher. I want to get the Science of Mind out there. I want people to know about CSLDallas, and I want them to know about the Science of Mind. And so I'm having to claim and embody something larger. Do you see? And so in our claiming, we want to grow our mental equivalence. We want to embody that larger thing. And it doesn't matter, don't get hung up on big or little or the words, or they have to be your words. Does that make sense to you? Right? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about the words that you pick. They have to be your words. They have to mean something to you. And for God's sake, just don't make it a paragraph. Right? You can't remember a paragraph when you're in the middle of thinking and feeling and imagining something that's small, that's old, right? You need short, little, pithy things that you can pull up in the moment. And for us, we spend a lot of time. What does it mean to be big church? And again, it's not like mega church, just bigger than we were, and not a closed system. How do we not be a closed system? And we spent time, and those two words meant something to us. Didn't matter if it didn't mean anything to anybody else. And so it's your words that begin to capture what you are embodying so that you can use that to grow the mental equivalent. And then finally, becoming. We actually have to become the person who has what it is that we want to experience. Right, and so for those of you who have been around with me for a long time, I used to say I don't do relationships. I'd never taught a relationship class, and I actually deeply believed that I was incapable of having a relationship. And every relationship that I had fell apart, and I kept going, well, it's clearly, I teach and practice the science of mind. I know who the common denominator is in all these relationships that are falling apart. So clearly it must be me. And, at the end of the last one, I was like, okay, really? Maybe we're done with that part of life. Maybe we should just be done with that part of life. And I began to think about being in healthy relationships. Now, quite frankly, I'm clueless. I was clueless at the time as to what a healthy relationship actually looks and feels like, because I did not grow up in one. And therefore, every one of my relationships up to that point had been reasonably unhealthy. And so I began to think about what would it mean if I were in this, not necessarily in a partnership, loving relationship, but just within this friend relationship, in this moment, in this relationship with this clerk, this person, my son, my stepfather. How would I show up in this moment if I actually were healthy? I didn't always know, but I could try. I could try things. I could try things on. And to begin to practice and to imagine and to become. Some of you know this story. This has really, really impacted me. A number of years ago, I had a woman in a class, and she said, I've been working on having a relationship. For 2 years, I've been building my mental equivalent about having a relationship. And I've just now gotten the relationship of my dreams. And she said in class out loud, she said, I realize it took me 2 years to become that person who could have that relationship. 2 years to become that person. And so in the becoming, so part of that becoming, right, was I began talking about needing a partner in ministry. And so we attracted a fabulous partner in ministry. And and so then something happened, and I began to discover that I could build a healthy relationship. And as you know, today we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary because I worked on becoming the person who could be with the person that I had grown a mental equivalent about. Do you see? It's really not about the other person. I wanted a partner. I kept saying a partner in ministry. I didn't realize it was going to be a partnership in life altogether. But my focus was on partnership, true, fully engaged, somebody who really I felt that with. And I had to become that. Do you see? I had to not be less than the people I was in partnership, or if truth be told, more than them. That was my work, to become that. And so in each of these ways, in all of these ways, we are growing our mental equivalent. For some of us, the work is in our thoughts. where our thoughts hold us back. For some of us, it's in our feelings, where our fears, our doubts, our insecurities hold us back. For some of us, it's that we either don't use our imagination, or we start imagining things and we discount them and we don't let them grow us. And for some of us, the work is in claiming this larger mental equivalent that we have. And then there's the work to do to really embody it, to own it, and ultimately to become that person. Now, along the way, the becomingness in all of these things, right? I think in working with our thinking, feeling, imagining, claiming, and embodying, the becoming is happening. As we become that, because that's what a mental equivalent means. There is a space in our consciousness, in our beingness, in our acceptance of our good that is equal. We get, yes, that is what's true about me. I am a successful published author. I'm a successful business person. I have healthy relationships. I'm prosperous. I have a prosperous, whatever it is, however you want to fill in that blank, and with more than one thing even. Do you see that doing that work, the becoming is the end result of all of that. And so these are the things that we work on. We work on them. We hope to inspire you on a Sunday morning to work with them. We work on it in our class, in our Sunday morning class, and in our Wednesday night meditation and class. But the primary place where we work on it is in our classes. And I cannot tell you how important it is to be in the classes, to do this work week after week after week after week. Because as you can see, it's not just one thing that's about how we grow our mental equivalent and become somebody that we want to be in our own lives. So we've got foundations class coming up. Reverend Karen's going to be teaching it. It is the base. It tells us all the principles and begins to invite us to practice it. Principles of successful living. We're going to be doing this both in class and online. And so if it's convenient for you to come online, Carol Merlot and I are going to be teaching principles of successful living. And it really is exactly that. How do we apply the principles to our life in a successful manner? And then we have the 5 gifts for an abundant life. Karen, are you teaching that too? Reverend Karen, later in the fall, we have 5 gifts for an abundant life, which focuses specifically, again, on our mental equivalents around prosperity. And, of course, our book of the month. You know, it's funny, we can joke about the title, but this woman is using Science of Mind, New Thought Principles today, just like Norman Vincent Peale used it in the 1930s, in an extraordinary way to build prosperity. So I really want to encourage you to dive into that book. I mean, it is totally principle-based. And sign up for the classes. Get yourself engaged in a way that really, over time, helps us to grow our mental equivalents. And when we are building these mental equivalents, do you see, we are building the fire of our prosperity. We are building the foundation. We are creating our mental equivalent, which builds the fire of prosperity. So let us close. I'd like to have you stand. And I'd like you to repeat after me. I grow my fire of prosperity.
I grow my fire of prosperity.
I build a greater mental equivalent.
I build a greater mental equivalent.
I become more than I am today.
I become more than I am today.
Because I know that I am supported.
Because I know that I am supported.
I am loved by the universe itself.
I am loved by the universe itself.
And the table and the feast is mine.
And the table and the feast is mine.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you. You may be seated.